Welcome to Eye on the Illini, folks. Mike Kegley here with Kedrick Prince. Illinois basketball season has started, so that was really cool. The game did not probably go as maybe a lot of Illini fans wanted to go, but I got to be truthful with you. As we talked about it, Ked, Brad, myself, we thought this Old Miss team, and notice I didn't say Ole Miss, I said Old Miss team. They had unbelievable 3 seasons together with some of these guys. And boy, you can see that is really, really important. Ked, just some initial thoughts over the top as we get this started.
Well, my initial thought, I'm going to comment on what you said. Last year, Illinois was one of the oldest teams in college basketball, Mike, and today they play an Ole Miss team that was old. This is not a time to panic. I know some fans are mad. Some people, they understand. Look at the big picture, which we'll talk about on this podcast. But there's certainly no reason to panic, at least in my eyes. That's why you play the games. I'm excited that they played an older team. This team has read all the things that we have wrote about them, things that we've said, and now they roll the ball out in the court. They have to see what they got to see what they need to work on.
Yeah, and I will tell you, as watching the game, this team is going to get better. So you just can't panic on this right now. I think, I saw a lot of good out there. A couple things that you see when guys don't know one another and then pressure gets put on them. Some guys revert to the best basketball player they know, which in their mind is themselves. And so they have a tendency to dribble around one-on-one and go, I don't want to give the ball up. And some of that is, let's think about the most basic things as a basketball coach. Of course, Coach Underwood knows where people are supposed to be on the floor, but players, they're playing against a team that's known for defense. And when you look to your right and you think that there's somebody's supposed to be there, you may be right, you may be wrong. There may be a player there. Maybe somebody didn't know that. Maybe that you were supposed to look to your left. It's really hard in these first few games to turn what guys are thinking into instinctual, go to the correct place, etc. And Kat, I don't know about you, but this looked like a first game that we see in a preseason. It's like the prototypical example.
This was a good game to go up against. When Brad Underwood spoke to us at Media Day, he didn't care about being punched in the mouth. And if you know anything about basketball, which all of our listeners do, when you look at the big picture, they're going to be fine. This team is talented. Here's my only negative, and we haven't got to that part yet, which we will talk about. I don't care about the score. My only negative was I saw too much one-on-one play. I didn't like that. I saw guys in their mind thinking we're down 14, 16, 18 points, and I'm going to take 1 3-pointer, and it's going to be a 1-point game. That's the part where the youth comes in. And even though they played a lot of high school basketball, a lot of AAU basketball, the mental part of the game still stays the same. There's just no one bucket that's going to get that done for you. That's my one negative. I have a lot of bright spots. I saw a lot of good things that we talk about with the players. And again, it was a exhibition game that they're going to learn from, Mike. There's so many teaching moments we're going to break some of that down here on this podcast, but to me, I'm just not ready to panic yet. I think this team is talented. I saw a lot of good things offensively. The 22 turnovers, I believe, was a concern for me. But again, you are playing one of the best defensive teams in college basketball, and I'm going to tell you this, that's going to happen a lot, but not every game. And, let's be honest. Ole Miss they couldn't miss a shot. A lot of people are going to sit here and try and tell me, and I'm waiting for those questions to come in. Illinois didn't play great defense, but some of those shots were contested. Now, I don't know what game people were watching. They were thinking our defense was atrocious. Not every shot, but some of those shots they made were just tough shots. I'm like, you know what that means? They're an older, Stronger team is all that means. They didn't just sit back there and there were a hand. It wasn't a hand in their face. There were guys making 3-point shots and putbacks, and it was just they were making shots, and that's going to happen in Illinois at some point too this year.
Yeah, and I go back to when I was coaching, we had a former NBA player come in and help out for a practice or two. And he talked about the fact, he goes, look, he goes, if you just put a hand in somebody's face, you cut their shooting percentage in half. And, Chris Beard's teams, they do a heck of a lot more than throw a hand in your face. So I think that it was a great early test. And I would think that if some guy, and we haven't really heard this, but if there was a player who was feeling their oats and thinking they were pretty good, well, this helps them come back down to earth where maybe they got to pay attention when Orlando says you need to do it a certain way. Maybe their ears will be a little more open right now. Let's talk a little bit. What were some of the bright spots that you saw in this that makes you, as a guy who, again, has a formidable AAU organization that you've run and you've coached at the college level? I mean, tell us a little bit about what you saw that encouraged you today. And specifically with like some players.
Okay, the first guy I'm going to bring up is Javon Gibbs-Longhorn. He was the guy that brought energy to the table to me. He was the guy that no one talked about because we've all heard about the NBA players with all the new, comers and the transfers with Trey White and Kylan Boswell. I was extremely impressed with Draymond. And if you go back to what he did late in the season last year, Brad Underwood played him, and there was a reason he played him. I'm not going to say names, because I don't think that's right, but I'll tell you, some of the guys early on looked scared. Draven didn't. That is one thing I know about that kid. He does not shy away from the moment. When things were going bad, he was attacking the basket, not just throwing up shots. He was looking to score or get fouled. That was a bright spot for me. I love Ibisevic. I think that guy is a player. I know Coach Underwood probably, I'm not in his mind or on the coaching staff, maybe didn't play him as much because of the defensive matchups. I think he held his own out there. That's a guy who has a lot of NBA potential. To me, it looked really good. I was also impressed with Big Morez. If he can learn to shoot free throws, I think Morez is going to be that guy. So those are some guys that I thought that had bright spots. Again, this isn't me being negative, but I thought there was guys, I would use Will once, going one-on-one too much, or KJ looking to go one-on-one. That's going to come with time and coaching. And when they break down the game film, Mike, they'll go over some of those things. But the talent that we saw was there. And one guy I felt really bad for was Ben. Ben's a great shooter. Brad ran sets for him, and those shots didn't fall. If people think they're going to play 35 games this year and that kid's not going to make shots, you're kidding yourself. It was just not a good day for him offensively. You make a couple threes, Mike, the game is totally different. I'm going to look at the stats here. Illinois, I believe, from three-point field goal, they were 10 for 33. So they shot 30% from three, and Ole Miss was 12 for 23, and they shot 52%. Illinois is a great three-point shooting team. So this is why I'm not going to panic.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you, from my watching of it, I think for Ben, this was probably one of the tougher teams he was going to face because they are going to give you no room to move, and if they can get away with that, they're gonna be in your pocket. That's tough for anybody to shoot on. I do think, with Ben, I think he can shoot, but I also think defensively, there's going to be moments where he's going to need to, if his step isn't a little bit quicker, he's going to need to anticipate and be where the offensive guy wants to go. I thought Gibbs-Lahorn looked really good. I thought I really was impressed by Morez. I when he gets in the game, now he's got to make his free throws. There is absolutely no doubt. But when he gets into the game, he gets rebounds. And I don't know if you noticed in the first half, he jumped in there and immediately got a foul called, not on shooting, but because somebody was trying to block him out and he just refused to be blocked out. That's a sheer willpower call. And then the other thing that jumped out at me, and I know that I may be a little bit different than most people, I was hoping that Ty Rodgers would get a shot off. And I'm again, the good thing about Ty is he is not going to waste people's time, effort, and energy by throwing up a bunch of trash. That is awesome. But I would have liked him to think about himself if he got an open shot, just to help his own confidence that he can put one down.
Mike, Ty, how do I say this? Ty dribbled himself out of shots today.
Yeah.
He was trying to do too much. That's not his game. When I was making the reference of and this surprises me for a guy that started 32 games last year or something, trying to do too much. It surprised me because every time he got the ball, he put it on the floor, and this isn't last year's team. And if he's going to be an effective offensive player, he's got to put the ball in the basket. I mean, not that they weren't guarding him, but he was trying to do too much, I think, at certain times. I think he has to find the role on this team because it is different. I think Trey White is another guy that needs to find his role on this team, and I think so does Kylan. All three of those guys play well. Ty played with a different group of players last year, but Trey White and even Kerry Booth, they're used to playing with different guys. And this is why it's going to take some time, I think, for them to gel. But Ty looked like he was pressing and he was trying to do too much. I mean, I know he's that vocal leader, but again, you're not going to get one basket, and you're down 14 points. When guys are just chucking up shots, and Will Riley got on a roll once, and then, next shot he threw up, let the offense come to you. I don't believe in all these heat checks. I mean, if the shots, they're great. I think they're a good shooting team, but again, today they didn't shoot particularly well, and, so be it. I guarantee it the next time out, the opponent won't be the same, but you're going to see what we all talked about.
Yeah, I agree. And just a little bit of an interruption here. AP poll just came out for football. Illinois dropped from number 20 to number 24. So it does go to show you that if you're ranked number 20 and you lose to the number one team, even if it's a little bit one-sided, you probably won't slide out of the poll, at least with what Illinois has accomplished earlier in the year with 3 victories over top 25 teams and a close loss to a top 10 team. So anyway, good news for the Illini. They'll be 24th when they host Minnesota this week in a very, very, very important game. So if you have the ability to be in Champaign next weekend and you don't have a ticket, see if you can grab one, because that will be really, really important. So as we look at this, Will Riley, boy, he certainly doesn't have a problem putting the ball up. He has confidence in that. What were your thoughts on the young guy deciding to play with deciding to step forward and play with some older guys and try to lead the way?
Well, here's my thing with him. He proved to me today he's one of those players that reclassified that can play. His shot selection wasn't great today. I think he was 2 for 8 from the field, and a lot of those shots were forced. He got to play 19 minutes. Once the game comes to him and he understands the college game is a lot different than high school, regardless of what anybody thinks. And the same thing with the NBA. It's a different game. So knowing all that, I think Will is going to be fine. He's one of the better shooters on the team. I think he's long. I think he's athletically gifted enough to defend. But however, this was his first game. And this is why you don't want to go out and just say, hey, you know what? Okay, he's not as good as people think. You learn. I mean, I am really glad that this game was scheduled. I'm glad that it was against a tough opponent. I'm glad it was a road game, because he will learn, and he is good enough. I mean, he's long, he's quick, but there were times, Mike, when he was looking to go one-on-one, and I know that they'll be talked about, but that's not a bad thing. That's why you play these games. Yes, they're games, they're charity functions to raise money, but this is a learning experience for coaches and even Chris Beard, because I tell you what, an experienced Illinois team could have made a run and made this game closer. So it's a learning experience for an even older team as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things people will see that is really different amongst this year's team, obviously you don't have a Terrence Shannon Jr. And anytime you're struggling as an offense, you just rotate the ball around to Terrence, see what he does. He'll generally get you back into the flow a little bit or get you a couple points. So they don't have what I call a streak buster right now, and it's early in the season. But what I did see this year is I saw a number of guys who can get their own shot. Will Riley can get his own shot. Even Draven showed today he could get his own shot. Obviously, KJ can get his. Trey White as well. So to me, I thought we found that there's several guys that once they get the confidence and they start knowing what they're doing on the floor and know what their teammates are doing, this team offensively should be there should be a lot of opportunities for defenders. If you leave a guy alone, they'll probably knock it down. And again, I don't know that last year there were a lot of guys who were willing or able to get their own shot.
Here's the deal with Terrence Shannon. Mike, I don't think Terrence Shannon was great at getting his own shot. Terrence Shannon was great at drawing fouls, which he was really good at, and he could shoot the ball really well. I mentioned some concerns. You can't go 10 for 19 from the free throw line either. That's a really bad look as well. You can't have guys walk up there because those are points that you leave on the table. Looking at the stats, Booth was 1 for 2. Gilles Longhorn, who we know is a good free throw shooter, went 0 for 2. Big fellow Morez was 1 for 4. Then you flip the other side, you look at Ole Miss, they only shot 12, but they made 9 of them for 75%. So that's the difference. One of the differences, I think Casperas, I know you haven't asked about him because he's one of the most highly regarded players. A lot of people are frustrated with him. I've told people from day one, you can go back and listen to these podcasts, you're going to love to hate him. He will make some unbelievable passes like the one he made to Morez, and then there's going to be ones where he learns, and that's, the learning curve. I think he's a good shooter. He shot an air ball. Okay, Michael Jordan shot 5,000 air balls before. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it happens. So what? The kid is a big guard. He's learning the game, and he's learning the American basketball. And I can assure you, Brad kept him out there for a reason. And you were talking about defense. One thing I will say, when you watch Ole Miss, it looked like Oregon playing defense against Illinois football yesterday. You went to football. Yeah. They got in your pocket. But that's good, though. That's, to me, as a coach, that's a coachable moment. That's when you compete, which is why I love Draven. That kid did not back down today. He relished that kind of defensive pressure.
Yeah, and I think that was Draven was a ton of fun to watch. It was nice to see him get that opportunity. Coaching staff's going to have to figure out how they want to play people, and they're also going to have to see what people earn. That's the interesting balance, because you may have an idea that I'm going to do X and Y as a coach, but Z might have a different idea. And if Z's out there getting points or rebounds or whatever you need, that is important. We didn't see a ton of booty ball today. That's something that I just think is hard to run against a team that is this aggressive and man to man. Now, I don't know if you feel quite that much that way, but again, once the team has played together, I think you can run booty ball in more situations. But early on, I think maybe they're trying to keep that a little bit maybe under wraps, or make sure they've got it all down before they unveil it.
Brad talked about playing booty ball, and when he does, it's going to be with Big Ben. He'll be the guy. And sometimes KJ, because he's 6'6", and there'll be smaller guards that he can shoot over the top. So I think you'll see some of it. You didn't see it early today. I think they were trying to, get up and down the floor. Again, some of the turnovers were enforced, which I know Kylan had 1 or 2, and I think Brad called timeout. I'm assuming that he talked about that. But overall, Mike, you know what? You look at the score, it wasn't close. It was never close. I think they cut it to 14, 12 at one point in time, I think. And then all of a sudden, Ole Miss just kept knocking down shots. So the one thing I will say, you were asking about guys doing certain things. One thing I will say, I'm not coaching, but if you're going to have KJ out, I'm going to have Draven in. If Kylan's going to be out, you need Draven in. You're going to have that kid on the floor. If he's going to be productive like that and he can guard, you have to keep him on the floor with one of those two players. One of the things we learned earlier in the season when they first started practices was, Trey White handling the basketball. I didn't see a lot of that tonight. It was mostly Colin and KJ. So, and I think Trey's going to be fine too. I think he just needs to find his niche. And again, like I mentioned with Kylan as well and the transfers, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think overall, like I said, traded 9 points in 18 minutes. Not a bad time there. I think finding the right combination on the floor is going to be something that they've got to use practice time and then refine it in a game. But there's a ton of parts. I'd much rather have the opportunity to have a roster like they have right now than have to play five guys and hope there's no fouls and hope there's no injuries this year. So it's all a little bit of perspective on that. Uh, Overall, I think I like I said, out of the center position, I thought that was a heck of a 1-2 punch that Illinois threw at him, and I think the rest of it is kind of figuring out who's there, and how they play with one another. And I do agree with you. You want to see a little bit more team ball, but again, it's day one. It's practice game one, and against. I would guess that most coaches don't want to play against Chris Beard's team in a regular game, let alone a preseason game, when they're going to lock the defense on and really try to make you look bad from the moment you step on the court. That's their calling card.
That's the same thing with Coach Underwood, except for he has a young team.
Yep.
Well, we're not making excuses. I still think this is one of the better teams in college basketball. You saw a team today learn. You saw a team, but you didn't see a bunch of guys hanging their head. You didn't see a bunch of guys, running from the competition. Again, this is a good test. That's what you want, because sure, when they play against lesser opponents, they'll shoot the ball better, but that's confidence. You don't want to play. Brad said when he came here, he didn't want to come out and play a bunch of junior high school teams. This is the University of Illinois, and you saw their schedule. They're going to compete in some of those games and win some of those games. I'm really that confident to think that they're going to do that. Right now, with what you saw today, people are probably thinking, we're going to be, take 8th and 9th in the Big Ten. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I just think there's too much talent there. And I like the size that they have. I like, the guard play. I like the wings. Defensively, he did say that to us during media day, that he would like to have an on-the-ball defender like Terrence Shannon. To me, what I saw today, that was from Kylan and from Draven. I think those were the two guys that kind of got after it on the ball. But that's contagious. Ty surprised me a little bit because, he was a guy that did that last year. But again, it's one game. You cannot, as a coach and certainly as an analyst, I refuse to hang my hat on one game and think, okay, you know what, I'm done. So because Will Riley was 2 for 8, he's not going to be an NBA potential player. Because the very next game, he could come out and score 16 points. He's capable of doing that. I believe against Butler, he had 18 or 19. So this is why you don't panic and think one game as the season's over and fans get mad and start panicking. Can't do that.
Yeah, and I think again, this is going to be a developmental year. So I think Illinois is going to have some high spots where they do very well. That you're going to be excited by what you see out there as a fan, and there's going to be some great victories. And there's going to be some losses that may be a little bit of a head scratcher or by a bigger margin than what you may like, and that's part of a team developing. Again, I'm not trying to make any excuses, but there's no guy who's played there for 3-4 years and been the long time the man, so to speak, and even with DeMonte Williams with his enforcerness, when he goes out there, Ty Rodgers isn't going to beat the snot out of somebody. DeMonte might. So you've got a different personality, and I do think it will take a little bit of time to gel. The other thing is I don't care how much you play and practice, and Ked, you can kind of talk to this too. There's a different thing in practice than in a game, knowing that in a game I can dump the ball off to you and you're going to make the shot. Practice is one thing, but doing it in a game, and they kind of have to get that flow in a game to see who's the guy that they want to look for when they're open. I thought this team did, like I said, KJ had some nice cross court passes, reminded me a little more of an NBA player from that respect. But he also tries to thread the needle on some that I don't think I would do. So those are the things you have to grow through. And as Illini fans, it's going to be fun to watch these guys develop. I would encourage somebody, if you're on an iPad, take the box score off of ESPN or wherever you get your box scores from. Take a screenshot and just save that one, because I think as you see the year go by, it might surprise you how well this team does, and how some of the mistakes you're seeing today may not be nearly as prevalent come mid-season, even as soon as January, as they start getting into the Big Ten game.
Mike, you were talking about practice. Last night, our colleague Matt Stevens was talking about how the Illinois, defense, you can practice, but you don't have that kind of speed to go against. That's the same thing with Illinois basketball right now. They don't have that kind of defensive pressure to go through. So you can practice all you want, but when the game comes, it is different, because you don't have those guys in your face like that all the time. At some point, that Brad Underwood's teams will get that way. I'm sure they will get that way. Because his team, you have to play tough. If you play tough and you play hard, you're going to play for him, which is why Ty Rodgers played last year. So they'll get there.
Yeah, and I will tell you, like when we played Ked's teams in AAU, first time we saw them, we're like, there's a problem here. So the next time we played them, we'd put 6 guys on our defense because we couldn't replicate the speed that Ked's teams had. So we'd just throw 6 guy out there, sometimes 7th, and the starters would be like, what's going on here? But it's what it's going to feel like come game time. So I have no idea how the Illinois football team tried to replicate the speed. And you saw that in the game, with 180 yards after catch or whatever Oregon had. And with a team like Chris Beard's team, with that man-to-man defense that extends almost to half court, that's really hard. If you don't have, if you only have 1 or 2 players who can do that, it's almost impossible to make that feel and look like what they're going to run into in a game.
Mike, here's a great point to that. KJ is obviously a gifted player, but playing against 18-year-olds and not Division I basketball in America, he has a tendency to throw one-handed careless passes. I can assure you that will be shored up, because it's not going to work. Kids play up the line, which means that they deny the passes, and they know if you're throwing a one-handed pass like that, I mean, let's do the math. If you throw a two-handed pass, it's going to be a lot stronger chest pass and throwing a one-handed flip pass. So that's one thing, an area of concern that he will face, and that's a part of growing. He had a couple good moves to the basket. I like his shot. He gets to the free throw line. I'm confident in him making free throws. But those are part of the game. Those are things that are part of the game where they will learn from. Still excited about it. Still, my expectations haven't changed. Some guys I'm really, really happy for. Some guys, and I will say 2 guys, I'm not going to leave everybody out, but Morez and Draymond, to me today, really, really impressed me today. And again, I saw flashes from Will. I'm sorry, Ibisevic. I'm a fan. I am a fan. And who's ever listened to this podcast, I'm going to go out and say, I think the Illinois Ibisevic is better than his brother that's at Arkansas. I'm impressed with that kid. Thomas Law, he's mobile. He's to be 7'1", 7'2". He is extremely mobile. Yes.
It probably will be a Brad practice, especially on some of their. I think when they get into some of their defense, especially out in the 3-point area, I think Brad will have something to say.
Well, here's how you know it's going to be a Brad Underwood practice. Brad knows the camera's on him all the time. And when he wanted to relay a message to his coaches, he did this. He put his hand over his mouth so that way only the coaches could hear. So I can
no lip readers allowed. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure practice is going to be different. But that's okay, though, because that's what you want. Because he's going to tell them, you guys read all the clippings that people like Kedrick and Brad wrote about and all these other papers and all this stuff. How'd that work out for you today? That's a teaching moment. And if that's what you need, Coach Underwood, another fluff story, I got you, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I, I I just think this season is going to be great, and it's going to be a lot of fun going down the stretch with the football team. Um, the month of November is such a fantastic month when both teams are good. For those of you fans who don't understand it, the greatest of all time was in '83 when Illinois basketball was fantastic, as was Illinois football. And you got a chance to watch the Illinois football teams doing things that had never been done before, and the Illinois basketball team was, going to Sweet 16s and better. It was just a great time to be a fan. I feel like that Josh Whitman has one upped even what Neil Stoner did, because Illinois women's basketball was not that great in those days, and now we're going to have a triple triple headed beast with the women's basketball, men's basketball, and football. And for Illini fans, that's going to be an awful lot of fun.
Right now, Illinois athletics, they're in a good place. And I will start with the head man in charge, Josh Whitman. He hired coaches to build programs. That's one thing I will tell all the listeners out there. Illinois, in basketball, they've been a little bit better. The women's basketball program, the doormats, and the men's football program. But here's what I like about Brett Bielema and Shauna Green. And they have both corrected me on this. They don't care about the past. This is the future. What happened in the past, it doesn't affect either one of them. They are about the future, and they want to get better. And you look, and we're not, discrediting our golf program, because we know how good they are at golf and volleyball and track and all those things. But those three programs that you mentioned, Mike, all three of those coaches were hired to build programs. We have, both you and I are old enough to know that Illinois football will hire a coach. I will say Ron Turner was one of my favorite coaches, and Ron Zook. They were great. They had 1 year, and then they fizzled off. You're not going to get that under Brett Bielema. You're not going to get that one magical year under Shauna Green, and then they're going to fizzle off. You're not going to get that with Brad Underwood. The one thing I do know, all three of those coaches, they speak well. They're nice people in front of your face and behind your back. But I'm going to tell you, because I know all three of them, they are competitive as hell. And I'm going to tell you, the one who's probably the most competitive that you wouldn't probably notice is probably Shauna Green. So
Yeah.
the program is going to be fine. And they're building a program. Think about it. Illinois is in the national limelight. They're ranked. People want to play them. They're recruiting well on all three on all phases. So the program is fine. It's a lot better than what it was before. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, there is no doubt. So we're going to close out this one. Again, we just wanted to give people some instant feedback. I think this basketball team, you couldn't have faced a tougher team for a young group to face, and certainly on the road. Illinois came up 17 short, but that's exactly what Brad Underwood wanted. He did not want to go somewhere where this team was going to win by 15 and not get pushed. And this gives him the opportunity and the rest of the coaching staff to be a little more emphatic when they provide coaching to make sure that things get better. So, fantastic first game here for the Illini. The excitement should be there. This team is going to be a ton of fun to cover. It'd be a ton of fun to watch. So we hope you join us. Of course, if you look down below there, the 27 cents a day, that is the best way to grab a hold of your Illini information. You get all the stories, you get everything, and you have the opportunity then to go into the back pages. And I cannot tell you enough, when you go onto our message boards, Brad and Ked and Matt spend a lot of time doing one-on-one communication on the message boards with our subscribers. It is a different experience than you might have had anywhere else. And if you like to ask an expert, hey, what do you mean by that? Or you ask an insider, whoa, what's going on with this recruitment? It's good when you can actually get somebody to provide you the feedback on what you are interested in real time. So I would highly encourage it. If you have not tried to subscribe with the Illini guys, we've been around now for 4 years. We obviously have our radio show across the state of Illinois. It's hard for, believe it or not, we all get recognized, which is crazy. People talk about listening to us on the radio all the time. So if you can, if you want to follow the Illini, whether you live in Champaign or Chicago, halfway across the country or halfway across the world, IlliniGuys.com keeps you in the know. We will have a preview of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Be looking for that on Monday night. Should be a lot of fun. Until then, go Illini.